Hello, everybody. We're back again today in our continuing effort to analyze all these Beatles albums one by one in consecutive order. Here with Sam St. John, and we're going to take a look at the fourth studio album, this time Beatles for Sale. Came out in December of '64. You got 8 Lennon and McCartney tunes, 6 covers, total of 14 songs. We're going to rank them worst to best. So here we go. Sam, how's it going?
Thanks again, Rich. I'm doing well. This is one that I'm kind of itching to do because I know we kind of started the series on the tail end of a certain live stream and a certain album that we won't talk about anymore. But this is one that's often voted by the fans and the critics as the Beatles' worst. It's to put the word worst on a Beatles album is kind of sacrilege, but it's because I think, like you said, there are 6 covers on it, so it's almost like an extended EP with some cover songs on it that the Beatles did. But this is one that's always stuck out in my mind. It's actually a little bit higher up on my list than a lot of people, simply because I have a lot of memories. I think I bought this album just before going to the beach with my family and grandparents one year. I guess it might have been 2010, spring of 2010, when I finally got this album. And yeah, it's just one that I associate with that specific vacation. Nothing crazy happened on that vacation, but I just remember listening to this album so much, and I always associate it with the beach when I go. So it's kind of got a sentimental attachment to me. But at the end of the day, there are some covers on here, and some of the original tracks that, if they were to leave the Beatles canon tomorrow, it wouldn't hurt their credentials as the greatest band ever. So
right. Yeah, I've got about 8 tunes in here that I like, 6 that are either mediocre or not so great. But again, it's the Beatles, and you got to weigh that out. You have to scale it accordingly. So let's see what we have. You're going to go first, 14 down to 1, and we'll see how we play out this. Number 14.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how this goes between us, because so far, if you've been following, we've been matching quite a bit on our number 1 choices. So we'll keep that in mind as we move into this one. But number 14 is actually a Lennon McCartney track. It's the song "I Don't Want to Spoil the Party," which is on the second half of the album, toward the end of the album. Kind of got a country sound to the guitar, kind of like the bow, now.
Yeah.
Really good harmonies by John and Paul. I don't want to spoil the party, so I'll go. Again, it's one of those that I don't think about a whole lot in the Beatles canon. Unfortunately, that's kind of the case with a lot of these first 4 or 5 Beatles albums. There are probably, between the 4 of them, probably about 20 songs, that take up the second half of these lists that they're never really in my subconscious. I never really think about them a whole lot. And this is one of those. I like the song. I like the harmony. I like the country feel to it, but it's just the number 14 out of this list.
Yeah, my number 14 is one of the covers. It's Mr. Moonlight. This, to me, is in contention for one of the Beatles' most forgettable songs. I had to go back and listen to it again just to refresh my memory, and it's not impressive at all. It's one that I think that they probably wish they never recorded, but that's me talking. I don't know. Even now, I'm having trouble conjuring up much about it, even though I listened to it last few days.
Yeah, I know it's often voted by fans as like one of the top 10 worst.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with like that funeral parlor organ that's kind of in the background. It's kind of hokey.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Number 13, moving into the covers here. Kansas City, their cover of that, the medley with Hey Hey Hey. I do have a fond memory. I was traveling out to Colorado just before my junior year of high school, and I remember specifically driving through Kansas City, and having the intention of, with my iPod, listening to this song. And sure enough, we go through Kansas City, and I turned this song on. So I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! I can hear this song in Kansas City." But I mean, it's a great Paul vocal. It's a rocker. Of course, Lieber and Stoller, who wrote tons of those, early 60s, late 50s pop tunes. Up on the Roof, they were right up there with Jerry Goffin and Carole King.
Yep.
But kind of, I don't know, it's just a forgettable cover with, you know, the Beatles in the background, especially during the second half of the song, you know, going bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. Again, it's not one that I, you know, under normal circumstances, like if I had still an iPod and were listening to their catalog on shuffle, if I'm not listening to the album in full as one piece, I'm probably going to skip it. So that's number 13.
I feel exactly the same way. It's my number 13 as well. Bottom end, I think it's a bad choice of a cover. It doesn't work at all. Filler. I'd much rather have a throwaway ballad, maybe that they gave to Peter and Gordon or whoever the people were at the time. I know they gave some songs away, and I'd rather have that on this album than this cover. But just me.
Yeah, agreed. Number 12. I think it's just because I feel like everybody has covered this song. It's Rock and Roll Music, the Chuck Berry tune. Of course, the Beach Boys, they had a horrendous version of the song. I think in the late 70s, if you recall. I don't know how deep you get into the Beach Boys, but
I remember
the Beach Boys version is very slow. It's like rock, roll, rockin' and roll. It's man, but not to talk about the Beach Boys, but John does a great vocal on it. I mean, it's a Chuck Berry tune. Again, I think it's because I listened to the Beach Boys version of it so much on one of their compilations. I've heard Chuck Berry's a million times. I've heard the Beatles. I know in our last video, I mentioned a Bryan Adams album called Tracks of My Years. He does that song on this album. So it's just been overplayed. It's just a really simple song. The background vocals, it's just one of those okay songs. I mean, I know it was a rocker in its time in the 50s when it came out, but at this point, the Beatles could have pulled something else out of their hats other than Rock and Roll Music by Chuck Berry, which at this point was already several years old as a cover. So
yeah,
that's number 12.
I have it a little, I hold it in a little higher regard, but you make good points, and that Beach Boys was god awful. That's all I have to say. But my number 12 is a Carl Perkins cover, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, sung by George. I like the guitar playing on it, but that's about it. I love the fact they're honoring one of their influences. They love Carl Perkins.
Yeah, he's on here a couple times.
Yeah. I just think this album would be, what I said it last time, would be so much stronger if they would have had I Feel Fine and She's a Woman singles that were released around the same time and recorded around the same time. Had they been on this album instead, it would have been dynamite. But you know, they're throwing in stuff that's just not quality material in my book compared to what they could have done themselves. So that's one of the I'm sorry.
You have to think at this time they were, I mean, how many years, you know, removed from the Cavern Club days where, you know, with Please Please Me or with the Beatles, they were essentially playing a lot of the same songs because they were easy songs. They didn't have to really rehearse them. They could throw them out there. At this point, you know, they've done Hard Day's Night, which is all in McCartney songs. They put out the film, you know, and they're playing, I mean, Beatlemania is in full pursuit. They have the opportunity to, you know, put out more great stuff. And it's common knowledge that at this point, the Beatles were really being pushed to put out an album for Christmas. You mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it came out December the 4th. Right. Hard Day's Night had come out earlier in the year. Help was on the heels of this album. So there's obvious exhaustion. It's almost even, you know, dare I say it, if they had not put out this album and kind of done this, you know, even a month or two down the line for 1965, it might have been a better album.
I think so.
But yeah, but I agree with you.
I think, like you said, they had that huge success with the film of the Hard Day's Night, and the studio executives and all the people behind the scenes are pushing. They know there's going to be a next film, so they're already looking ahead to that with Help. Yeah. And the album and the touring, and it's just overwhelming. I don't know how they did it. How they were waking up in the next day and standing on 2 feet. You know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. And I'm sure even like today, I'm sure Paul and Ringo sometimes have to think back, like we were crazy doing that.
They probably can't even remember the day in, day out drudgery of that. It's just a blur.
Yeah, at this point, it wasn't due to drugs that they couldn't remember. No. It was just because they were doing interviews between concerts, and they were sometimes doing a couple of concerts a day, and they were on these big, reviews with 5 or 6 other artists,
Yep.
doing film, radio. I mean, the BBC sessions were coming out at this time, so they were all over the world.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you number 11, right?
Right. Number 11.
You just mentioned it earlier, Mr. Moonlight. Again, it's just one of those. I said the word hokey. It's hokey. Just the weird organ is kind of making it cheesy, like you're at the funeral parlor, or listening to like the obituaries on the radio back in the day. It's just the because we love you, don't miss the moonlight. It's weird, and it's not really a rocker. It's a killer opening vocal by John. I mean, that opening note with no music, he's just screaming it out. It's kind of on the same level as Twist and Shout in terms of that range.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one that I would skip. If I'm not listening to the album in full, I'm probably going to skip it.
Yep. Number 11 to me is Babies in Black. This was the first song recorded on Beatles for Sale. I read that, which is an odd choice, but kind of a strange song. I'm not really a big fan of it. Oh, what can I do? Babies in Black, and I'm feeling blue. Tell me who. I don't know. Just it doesn't do much for me, so I kicked it outside the top 10. It's better than the 3 covers I mentioned before, but not much. I'm assuming you have it higher.
Oh, I have it. Yeah, I have it much higher.
Okay.
So we'll get there later.
Okay.
Yeah. So top 10. It's the second song on the album. I'm a loser. I'm not calling myself that, but really, really good vocal. I mean, harmonies by John and Paul. Again, at this point, the Beatles are still full on harmony. They're a harmony band.
Yeah.
Just the high range of Paul. I'm a loser and I'm not what I appear to be. And again, it's a classic John song.
Yeah.
There's some depressive moments in it. There's just that darkness that looms over John's upbringing that turned into his music, that kind of followed him the rest of his life. Not a whole lot to say about it. It's actually, it doesn't seem like that kind of goes, I guess, with why people consider this one of their worst albums. Is it's the second song on the album, which is usually the first 2 songs were a 1-2 punch. And, the first 2 songs on this album, there's not really excitement on those first 2 songs. You're kind of like, oh, we're 2 minutes in, 6 minutes in to the song, to this album, and we haven't really been hit by, that's the Beatles, there they are. So I think it kind of falls with that. And I mean, it's a Lennon McCartney track, but it's filler, and it's only the second song.
Yeah, I feel a little bit differently. I have it pretty high on my list. For some reason, that darker material works for me on that song. My number 10 is I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. Country-ish, angst-ridden kind of tune. Guy getting stood up by a girl, decides to take a walk and look for her rather than spoil the party. Very average, It's not terrible, but number 10.
Yeah. Well, number 9, I just mentioned it. It's the opening track, No Reply. It's again, it's a Lennon McCartney song, and like I said with the last song, it's not an album opener song. You'd even expect the song like maybe even like Babies in Black to be the opener, to be like an original Lennon McCartney song as the opener, because if you look at the rest of these Lennon McCartney songs, there's only a couple options that could have been number 1 for an album to start. And No Replies is funny because it's kind of like a mellow song, until like they get to like the bridge where they're like, I nearly died, and it kind of like goes against the verses, this happened once before, didn't do it. It's just another one of those songs that starts without the music, just a vocal. There's some like the really strong at the end, and I think that's probably one of the reasons it's so low too, because I don't like how at the end they're like no reply, like that's how it ends. It's kind of like they're just throwing it away. So it's still, I mean, it's number 9, but again, a lot of these songs, the first half of the list here is kind of like even getting down to 7, 6, and 7.
I have that one quite a bit higher. This is the one album we've been kind of different on the most.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good
Which
thing.
is cool because we don't want to be the same identical. It's like no fun in that. We have to have a little.
Although at this point we're placing bets on, number one for the rest of these albums.
My number 9 is the Buddy Holly cover, "Words of Love," which is a song I like and love, but I like it by Buddy Holly better. It's
Wow.
it's an okay cover. Instrumentally it's good. I always like that Buddy Holly vocal though. And this one just lacks a little authenticity to me. It's well done. I'm not going to say it's not. I'm kind of glad it's on the album because they do it well. It's just number 9 for me. I like the 8 songs ahead of it better.
Yeah, that's much higher for me. You can tell on this album a lot of their influences. I mean, I think that was the last one we've talked about. Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
Carl Perkins is on here twice, which
Yep.
says a lot about Carl Perkins, and then Buddy Holly on here.
Buddy Holly.
So yeah, I mean they were really going back to their their young teenage days on this one.
They picked out great people to emulate and admire anyway,
Oh yeah, and they took those influences. I mean, George's guitar playing, obviously he studies Carl Perkins more probably than Chuck Berry, because even in the 80s, I mean, George Harrison would play with Carl Perkins at like tribute gigs and things like that. And
Yep.
Yeah, that I'm sure they would have if had Buddy Holly still been alive in the 60s and
that would have
even
been
in the 80s, like the individual Beatles probably would have, especially John. I know John really, because Buddy Holly was cool because he wore glasses, and John always felt, kind of like a nerd when he was a kid. So yeah, it's a little bit higher for me, that the Holly tune.
Cool.
Number 8 is Every Little Thing. Again, on toward the latter quarter of the album. Kind of a neat little
Yeah.
just again, simple lyrics. They kind of just repeat every little thing toward the end. Every little thing. Not a whole lot to say about it. It kind of juggled, 9, 8, 7 were kind of all like, the songs can go wherever I kind of point, and that's where they're going to go. It's a good vocal, when I'm walking beside her, people tell me I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Just again, more despair. I mean, John, that's what complimented Lennon McCartney so much is, and we'll talk especially later on with songs like, like A Day in the Life and things like that, where the up tempo and like the optimism of McCartney really counterbalance Lennon. Even like on songs like Help, I mean, the counterbalance is just it's what made them such a perfect duo. But yeah, again, another song I don't have a lot to say about, but it's my number 8.
I have it at number 8 also, so we hit on that one. I don't have a lot to say. I only have a few things written down. It's a nice, pleasant, melodic chorus. Not really much to it. It's good, but nothing really stands out. I like the do 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 do. I like the melody there, but it doesn't overpower you, and mediocre on this particular album. So it's right in the middle at number 8.
It's kind of got some neat drums, They kind of go doom doom every little doom doom, like it's just the Ringo doing well on this, and he was always, I mean, even talking about the Get Back documentary, Ringo was always the cool head kind of between the other 3 guys, and he's always steady.
Yep.
All right, so we're moving number 7. You just mentioned it not too long ago. It's the last track on the album, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby.
Okay.
The George vocal. Again, I love George's early vocals. I've talked about this in the last 3 videos that we've done. He just still sounds so young. I love how he says, "I'm dressed it up and they called it me." He kind of says like me, like everybody's trying to be my baby. Be my baby now. And then I love how at the end he's like, "Took some honey from a tree." Like he really, like you can tell he was enjoying it. And I think this is another one of those where he performed it. He got to perform it with Carl Perkins in his middle age, which I'm sure George was just tickled to death to do that. Especially knowing how shy George was. I mean, he didn't like to tour really a whole lot after the Beatles, and so the fact to get George to do anything like that, that meant he liked you. I mean, he did it with Bob Dylan at Madison Square Garden, and he did it with He toured with Eric Clapton, in the early '90s because they were best friends. So he did it if he was going to be with somebody that he admired, and he just does a killer take on that. And he probably had no idea that, in 15 years he'd be playing with Carl Perkins
That's
song. So
cool part of it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
This guitar playing's excellent on that song. The vocals a little thin.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like the Carl Perkins covers. Number 7 is a Carl Perkins cover, Honey Don't, sung by Ringo. And to me, Ringo's voice fits better with this type of song than George's. That's why I have it higher.
Okay.
Cool guitar playing. Ringo's always good with those country tunes, you know that. And I like how he says, "Rock on, George, one time for me." And
One time for me. Yeah.
And then at the end,
And then later he says, "One time for Ringo."
one time for Ringo at the end. It's cool. It adds a lot to the song. And he does a good job on it. What can I say? I like it.
Yeah.
It's one that I definitely would not skip. I enjoyed playing that and hearing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's my number 6. So it's a killer Ringo tune. He still does it live, and he even still throws in that rock on, rock on. He still says
that's cool, man.
From his kit. And Ringo, here he is, 81. He's gonna be 82 this summer. Still doing that song. And it's a song that's probably about 10 years older than this version. So I mean, it's a 60-plus-year-old song at this point, and he's still doing it. And I love it. That adds that what you were just saying, where he actually mentions George by name. And then the and they go George is really killing it on that one too. Emulating Carl Perkins, and
Great
he's
job.
not really being his own man yet in terms of playing these covers. Like, he's not doing his own thing. Which if it's a great guitar solo, why try to change it?
Sure.
So yeah, that's my number 6.
My number 6 is one that you had a ways back. That's the Chuck Berry cover, Rock and Roll Music. I like it. I think it works. John's voice is excellent on it. It's a great jam. I know it's been played to death, and it probably hurts your ranking a little bit, but it's my top cover on this particular album. The other 5 ahead of it are all Lennon and McCartney songs. I still like hearing it. I mean, Chuck Berry, it's hard to compete with his version, but
right,
still good enough to rank number 6 on the album for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not one that
Yeah,
it's just overdone for me. But I mean, it's a killer song. I mean, I'm sure, like, especially when Chuck Berry came out with it was exciting.
I think the Beach Boys ruined it forever for you.
Yeah, and what's terrible is Mike Love is still doing it. Not to bring him into the conversation, but he's still doing it. He's 81 now.
Hey,
the rock and roll needs to go away from that. But anyway, moving on. Top 5.
Yeah.
I love this song simply because of the opening, and it's What You're Doing. That kick drum, the doom 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 boom, and then down 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 down. It's so good. I would almost even if they were to make that like a song like Flying on Magical Mystery Tour, where it had just been an instrumental, it still would have been pretty high on my list just because it's so fun. Ringo's doing his thing, George is doing his thing. The harmony is great, and it's really funny because there's that one point in the song where they say the wrong it's Paul. He's double tracked with himself, but I think he messes up at one point, because at one point one of his voices is saying you and the other voice is saying I. He's like, you, I.
Yeah.
Stop it running. There's no fun in it. Why should it be too much? It's just really cool to hear the double tracking. And again, this, we can take every Beatles album and talk about a turning point. Again, this is kind of another one of those turning points on this album where they're really working with double tracking and harmonizing with themselves. And actually, What You're Doing, that's still the name of Paul McCartney's newsletter, is called What You're Doing. And I wish he would still do it live more. I wish it was more in rotation. Cool. Even if he took out one of the more popular songs, I think it would be cool to bring that one back into it, just because it's so fun. I'm sure it's fun for the drummer if he were to play it, but yeah, it squeaked by into the top 5 for me.
I've got it at number 5 also. I love this song. The drums, I have that written down right away, right into that, I guess it's a 12-string guitar right after that. Beautiful playing, killer harmonies. And I like the play on words. Look what you're doing. I'm feeling blue and lonely. Da, 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 da. You know, just it's a hidden gem, underrated, underappreciated. Nobody ever talks about this song. I think it's excellent.
And he's got that rasping voice. It's like, I've been waiting here for you. It's
Yeah.
just a great vocal right there. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites for sure. Glad it made the top 5. I could have put it higher, but I didn't want to get crazy on myself. So
Well, we're moving down the list here. I mean, we've matched on 3 so far. So
yeah,
this is gonna be interesting. I'm starting to think about some things here, but
I don't know, but my 2 and my 3 you already have. So I know that they're buried on your list, but I have them higher. We'll see.
well, my number 4, it's the number one hit from the album. It's 8 Days a Week. Again, probably because of oversaturation, but again, comparing it to, at this point, the 10 songs that came before it, I mean, it's hard to put it any lower for me. One of those, I think it was a Ringoism where he talked about working 8 days a week. And he had a lot of lyrics, like, I mean, a lot of sayings like that. That I think it was a Ringoism. I'm not 100% sure on
Yeah,
that.
I think it is. Yeah.
But actually, when I saw McCartney, this was the song that he opened with, which was really cool back in 2014, because it's not really necessarily a McCartney track. I mean, it's John and Paul. So it was neat to see McCartney solo do it live. But killer 60s pop tune, with the claps, hold me, love me, 8 days a week, I love you. And then the Ringo comes in with a boom.
Yep.
We all know the song. There's no need for me to break it down. It was a number 1 hit. Again, it's still in McCartney's rotation of live songs. So it's my number 4.
Yeah, I that would be the song that I would lead this album off with. We talked about openers before. I would jump right in.
Yeah, me too.
That, to me, that would be the way to start this album out, instead of buried the way they have it. But it's another story. My number 4 is a beautiful little song called I'll Follow the Sun, Paul. I wish it were a little longer. It's just about it's under 2 minutes, I think. Melodic, great harmonies here, short, sweet, efficient, gorgeous. I love everything about it. I just like the other 3 songs better. And I'd like Tomorrow May Rain, but I'll Follow the Sun. I like the little rain and sun action there. Good stuff.
Right. All right, top 3. You mentioned this one ways back, and it's the song "Babies in Black."
Wow, good job.
I really like it. I love the waltz nature to it. I think it was one that they often opened their shows with at this time. And it's one of those where if you see live recordings of it, you can see that they're really trying to hear themselves over the audience. Especially Paul, he's like really stomping his foot to try to get the timing with Ringo behind him. But great harmonies. The vocals really soar where they sing, oh, how long will it take till she sees her mistake? I've really liked it. Actually, I didn't think when I was making my list that it was going to even be in the top 5. And then when I started going through the songs, I'm like, yeah, that one's pretty high for me. So again, it's a great little waltz. The intro is like that. I've always liked it. I like that it's a waltz. It's kind of a non-pop time signature with that 3/4 time. So it's my number 3.
Very good. My number 3 is No Reply. You had that earlier, the opener of the album. Basically, again, the negative kind of thing. John trying to reach his girlfriend, who he suspects may be cheating on him, inspired by the late 50s classic Silhouettes by the Rays, which I remember that song. I'm a sucker for the hand claps on here too, on No Reply. Just I think it works. I mean, you had some negative things to say about it, and they were good points. I understand that, but I think it's a decent opener. But like I said before, I would have went with 8 days a week. This would have came maybe 4th or 5th along. Good, solid song. No reply. It happened
Yeah.
once before. I like that lyric too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one.
All right.
All right,
Top two.
top two. You talked about this one earlier. It's a cover and it made it to number 2. It's Words of Love.
Nice.
I've always loved that song. I remember hearing the song and playing it for my parents who, I mean, they knew the Beatles, but they weren't like fully invested into the Beatles. And I was like, do you know who this is? And I played them that song and they're like, it sounds like, it could be Buddy Holly. It could, it's, and I said, it's the Beatles. And like, wow, it's the Beatles. Cause I prefer the song to the original. I love the tightness of the harmony. Tell me what you hear. Tell me love is new.
Yeah. They do a good job.
Those open chords. I love playing the song guitar myself. I love how they do their guitar, and George. I love how he does it. So it's definitely Buddy Holly sounding, but it's not exactly like the original. Unlike more like the Perkins tunes or the Chuck Berry, that kind of thing. This one, it's very tight. It's all so closely knit together. The harmonies, the music. And it's one that I'll always have near the top of my list on this album.
Very good. You're almost swaying me to move it up, but anyway. My number 2 is I'm a Loser. I love this song. It's got that Dylan-esque kind of vibe, folk rock kind of feel to it. It could have easily fit in with Help or Rubber Soul on those albums, I think. The harmonica solo is good, and I like the lyrics here. Although I laugh and I act like a clown, beneath this mask I am wearing a frown. And my tears are falling like rain from the sky. Is it for her or myself that I cry? And then he jumps into the chorus, I'm a loser, and I've lost someone who's dear to me or near to me. I'm a loser. I'm not what I appear to be. So I like the whole song. It works. It's a great Beatles song for me. Number 2.
Wow. Yeah, it was my number 9.
Yeah. Well, we had to differ.
No, I'm sorry. I'm a Loser. I'm a Loser is number 10. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Even worse.
Yeah, it's even worse.
I know what your number 1 is, so hit it.
Yep. My number 1, it's I'll Follow the Sun. Again, keeping in line with my love of McCartney. I think it's a beautiful song. Like you mentioned earlier, it's less than 2 minutes long. Wish it was longer. And actually, when he does it live, which I don't think he has done it for several years, he kind of like plays with the fact that it's so short, where he'll keep finishing. He'll be like, well, don't you know that tomorrow may rain? So, and he's like,
Yeah.
Tomorrow may rain. Like he keeps doing that at the end.
Yeah.
Or like they'll stop and like everybody will cheer, and then like they'll jump back into it again. Like this is so short. Let's keep playing it. But I love how it sounds. I love the kind of like the tremolo on the guitar, like the bow now down now. It's just it's a perfect song. Again, I've talked about McCartney being a master of melody. And again, he's harmonizing with himself. So, it's like super tight in the harmonies. I love the counter harmony with the part where he's singing, well, now the time has come, so my love, I will, like the bass line that he's singing.
Yeah.
I love it. It's one of those great songs that, again, it's kind of hidden in their canon for the casual fan. So that's my number 1.
It's a great song. I agree with everything you said. I just don't have it number 1. I wish it were longer. I mentioned that, and absolutely gorgeous. It's just a beautiful song.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing negative to say about that. My number 1 is 8 Days a Week. Perfect song. I like that fade in the beginning where you and it just grows. And, yeah.
Vintage. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
That's that vintage 64 Beatles sound, the sing-along chorus, the hand claps in between. Hold me, love me, and just everybody's into that.
Yeah.
If you have any kind of sense of music history,
of melody, yeah,
melody, or you just want to join in the fun, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
I can play that, any time of day, and I'm going to clap those 2 claps, man. It's just fun. Good stuff. Gets me into it.
Yeah.
So we finally disagreed on a number one. It had to happen eventually. It took us till album 4. But
Well,
actually,
really, yep. We've done
5.
5 albums. This is number 5.
Right,
Yeah.
because we went with the White Album as our first project, and then we came back around. So
Yeah.
1 out of 5. We're 4 out of 5 on hit number ones, which is
80%. Yeah.
That's solid in anybody's book, you know. Very cool. We're hitting 800
Yeah.
All-Star material. That's Hall of Fame material.
Yeah. Well, it's the Beatles.
Yeah. So next time out, we're going to, of course, go into Help and Rubber Soul. We'll do them back to back and record them. And all these are going to be released individually, so they cut down on time. We want everybody to watch these. So please leave us some feedback and comments, your top 10, 5, do the whole list if you want to. Give us your best song on each of these albums. We'd love to hear back from you and see how we stand. Subscribe to Sam St. John, of course. His channel, love it to death. You got all the Americana you can handle on there. He's singing. You got Beatles. He does newer material too. I know he's an Avett Brothers fan, and John Mayer and others. So go over and check his channel out if you haven't already. And we appreciate you watching. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll be back next time with Help. Thanks again. Take care.
Take care.